Welcome. From its very beginnings, Doctor Who has so largely focused on travel in time. But as we know, it's not the only show which has sent its characters back in time or forward into the future. On Not the Doctor, our panel of TV experts will be discussing shows that have explored the dimensions of time. You're very welcome. I'm your host, Sandro Monetti, host of the award-winning podcast, Who's the Best? And these are your panelists. Let's meet them now.
Julie O'Malley.
Kristi Schoeman.
Michael Tonas.
Myriam Lopez.
River Alexandra Song.
And Veronica Swarbe.
Welcome to you and welcome to you. Julie, let's start with you and let's discuss Outlander. What do you love about the way they tackle time travel in that show?
I think my favorite part about that is, first of all, the show is all about time travel. I mean, that's the whole point. There would be no show if it weren't for time travel. What I like the best about it is it's completely organic. There's no machines, there's no space travel, there's no, it's a natural occurring phenomenon. And it seems like the standing stones are put there either as a gateway or a warning. And it just, and not everybody can do it. They don't really explain. It might be hereditary, it could be something else. But certain people, when they touch the stone, they get shuffled back 200 years, and it's totally natural. It is a natural occurring phenomenon, and I think that's the best part. There's no mechanical need for anything else.
It's a great device and it's a great show, and it was one inspired by Doctor Who because, of course, the character of Jamie Fraser was inspired by Jamie McCrimmon, the second Doctor's companion, played by Fraser Hines. But we're not here to talk about Doctor Who. We're here to talk about other shows which have explored time travel. Let's now switch to one that saw 45 million households watch its first season on Netflix, The Umbrella Academy. River, why don't you start us off on that one?
Well, The Umbrella Academy is basically around the family and the extraordinary powers they have. Number 5 can travel in time. He doesn't know exactly how he does it, but he has ended up working for the time agency because he was trying to get back to save his family from the apocalypse. It's very timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly.
Veronica, is it timey-wimey enough for you?
Oh yeah, I love the fact that the organization that oversees the timeline and tries to protect it from everybody uses briefcases to travel. Like it's fashionable and functional at the same time.
And Michael, your view on the Umbrella Academy and its use of time travel?
I find it very interesting, and the fact being that they kind of slip in and out, especially 5, just at unique moments of each event, almost like it was predetermined.
Let's switch next to The Librarians. Myriam, what did you make of that one and its approach to traveling in time?
Well, you know, when you mention The Librarians, you know, you have to think of the awesome aspect of it, which is kind of like a museum in a library. And it is all about time travel also, except that you just step into this like room thing and then you go to where you need to be, and in a Indiana Jones kind of fashion, figure out what went wrong and find that missing piece that needs to go back into its pedestal, as you could say. And I love it because it also brings you back down to history and gives you kind of lessons for.
Kristi, I saw you nodding there. Are you a fan of that show as well?
Yes, I've seen it several times. I actually watched the whole episode and I started rewatching it again because it's a lot of fun. It is a Indiana Jones through time, and they open the door and they, oh yes, this is Boston, you know, or someplace. And it's like, it's just a lot of fun.
From ancient stones to modern briefcases to Indiana Jones, there are so many ways to travel back in time, apparently. But let's talk about a show almost as classic as Doctor Who, and that would be Star Trek. And let's go to Spock over there to give us his opinion of how the original series handled the issue of time travel. Take it away, Michael.
Well, the Enterprise is known for a particular episode of encountering a planet where the beings actually had traveled back in their own history to survive. And that's mostly been recorded as the first time of time travel in the series. But in an earlier episode of The Naked Time, the Enterprise encountered a being that was actually affecting the emotions of the crew. And to escape the planet's orbit, they actually had to create an implosion with antimatter and matter in the warp core, and resulted in the Enterprise reversing back 71 hours in time.
Hang on a minute, Michael. You've lost me with all this scientific stuff now.
I apologize.
Now, the stones I could go with. You know, the briefcases I could go with, but the matter and the
Antimatter.
So let me ask you this: is the science of Star Trek, does it still hold up?
Not in a fully proven factor, but theoretically.
Mm-hmm. Now, has anyone else but me seen the classic episode "City on the Edge of Forever," in which William Shatner and co. have to go back in time to save Joan Collins? Now, that is classic time travel TV, right, River?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the Guardian of Forever almost predates Stargate.
And Julie, what did you think of Edith Keeler having to die to save the future?
Oh, actually, that was kind of sad. I mean, that was really, really hard. It was hard on the doctor. Bones did not do well with her dying, and I understand why it was a necessary mechanical device that they used, but it was still a little too much drama and soap opera for Star Trek for me.
Michael, tell us about Star Trek, the animated series, and how they dealt with time travel, if they did it differently.
The event of traveling back, Spock actually meets his earlier self with no recollection of memory because he had introduced himself as a cousin. So maintaining his own timeline non-directly, he continued the same events, but was only able to save so much because he obviously lost his beloved pet, if we remember.
No, I don't. I just remember Joan Collins. But still, thank you. I will check that one out. Thank you. Thank you for the tip. There's already so many shows we've mentioned that I want to revisit. A particular favorite of mine was Quantum Leap. Veronica, why don't you lead us off on Quantum Leap?
So Quantum Leap is about Dr. Sam Beckett, and he basically goes into what is called the quantum accelerator and disappears. And what we later find out in the show is that he's sent back in time, but only along his own timeline, and takes over the persona of people within that timeline, but they don't know that it's him because he looks like the people that he's basically become. So he writes Little Wrong. I'm sorry?
Kristi, what did you think of that time-traveling device as used in Quantum Leap?
I liked it, except it does have a little bit of a motion sickness to it. But yeah, the character of Al being able to kind of go back as a hologram to help him, even though he wasn't much help, was actually a clever idea. And I liked it how he just managed to happen to land in a body at a certain period in time to fix it.
And Julie, is Quantum Leap a show you remember fondly?
I loved Quantum Leap. The whole body surfing. He's body surfing. That's exactly, he's surfing from body to body within his timeline. And it came up, I think it was a really good device for time travel. Although I kind of wish that he was limited to the other person's timeline instead of just his own. So that would have given him a little more width and breadth to be able to go further as he went from people in different ages. So that could have been a little more interesting for me than to have him stuck in his own timeline.
Now, so far, we've talked mainly about American shows, but it's not just Doctor Who that's a British-originated show that deals with time travel. Now, I introduced a few of the panelists to a show called Crime Traveller, which is basically a rip-off of Time Cop, where basically a couple of cops go back in time to solve crimes by being there at the time to witness who did it. So that's the concept. Now, this has divided opinion. Myriam, what did you think of the masterpiece, or maybe I'm leading you there, that is Crime Traveller?
Oh, well, you know, the masterpiece within itself, I really hated it, but
But millions of others.
Slade is a kind of a jerk in it, so that kind of turned me off from the show.
Kristi, pull it round. Surely Myriam is wrong.
I liked it because it was, the time machine is developed by Dr. Holly Turner's father. So technically it's a time turner, but that's another joke. But yeah, but the character of Slade is more like a blank slate. He is kind of lacking personality compared to her. She's wonderful. And it was just fun. It was more like you can't go back and change the time to affect your current presence. Like he goes back and gets betting information, and then when he gets back to the future, it's erased because he can't take it from one time zone to another.
Yeah, should have learned from Back to the Future too, Kristi, shouldn't he? Yes.
Yes.
I'll be betting on sports. All the lessons were there. By the way, if you want to decide for yourself, I think the Crime Traveller's only season is available on YouTube. River, you were watching it. Have the casting vote. What about Crime Traveller, which starred ex-EastEnders actor Michael French and ex-Red Dwarf star Chloe Annette? Hit or miss for you?
I liked Chloe. I would have rather she had a different cop with her.
Oh dear.
He was really badly written and poorly acted. But the plots were interesting because he was so thick-headed that no matter how many times she said, you can't change the past, he would try. Or he would try to cheat the past. And, you know, so she basically is trying to stick with the whole fixed point thing, that once it's happened, but they couldn't go forward. So.
Well, Crime Traveller, not hugely popular, but one show that has been very popular over the years is Supernatural. I'm going to ask River and Michael about this one. Michael, why don't you lead us off on Supernatural and how time travel worked in that show?
It worked very interestingly. The angels apparently can travel back in time to maintain or keep events or control for other purposes, historical, like I said, events, but only for a period of 24 hours, apparently.
Oh. And then what happens, River?
Well, they come back to the time that they started in, but they also can go back and change events in time, which when, I think it was Raphael, didn't like the movie Titanic, and Castiel wanted to save 50,000 souls, so they simply made the Titanic raise, and all of the people weren't dead anymore, and it was completely destroying the timeline because those people were supposed to die. So they had to rewrite time. The angels aren't the only one. The Winchesters have traveled via sigils, and that's how they met their father as adults, was he had traveled from the Men of Letters bunker into the 2000s, from 1957 to the 2000s, because he was trying to deliver a message to his son, but he kind of missed.
And then we move to Timeless, which has an interesting concept of one group of time travelers trying to change the past for sinister ends, and another group of time travelers trying to stop them, and hilarity ensues. Kristi, why don't you lead us off on Timeless? What's your opinion of that one?
Because the rule of time travel is you can't go back and change the past. In the first episode, they changed when the Hindenburg explodes. And instead of killing 36 people, it only kills 2. So when they return to the future, she's missing her sister, and her dying mom is no longer dying. But it's one group of good guys going against one bad guy who steals one time machine, and they use he has the mothership time machine, the good expensive one, and they go after him in the test model, the lifeboat, and they try to stop him, but in doing so they find out he's actually not the bad guy, but ends up helping them because it's a bad group called Rittenhouse that is trying to control the future.
I think I'm with you there. I might need some extra help from Myriam on this one. Does Timeless deserve to be called one of the greatest shows of all time?
Well, it does get kind of wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey, and they mess up a bunch of timelines that they have to fix. And it's kind of not like the best show.
They have nice costumes.
But I do like, I do like...
Crime Traveler. Is it better than Crime Traveler is what we want to know.
It's a notch above.
Oh, a notch above. Well, that's something anyway. Let's talk about Fringe. River, I know this is one you've been particularly enthusiastic about.
Well, I like Fringe because they not only do time travel, but they do parallel universes.
Mm-hmm.
And then they steal an awful lot from Doctor Who, right up to reverse the polarity. But in Fringe, you have people that are trapped in time, that they have traveled to another dimension and they're trapped in time. There are two universes existing at the same time. In one, the Twin Towers survived. In the other, it was destroyed. In order to sync up the timelines, they need to go back and deal with another group of humans from the future that are convinced that it really both areas need to be erased. Yeah.
This is why I could never follow Fringe. Completely over the top. Now, Veronica, do you need to be as intelligent as you and River to understand Fringe, or can even the likes of me enjoy it if they give us a chance?
I think anyone can enjoy it, to be honest, because I watched it when it was first airing, and I had no concept of, I hadn't even seen Doctor Who yet when I saw Fringe. So my concept of timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly travel was non-existent, and I'm just like, okay, this is a good show.
I think the actors sell it.
Oh yeah, well, and the actors helped.
You make a good argument. I still think that Futurama is more on my level. Julie, why don't you, I see you applauding. Why don't you lead us off on this one?
I love Futurama. Well, it starts out that this guy named Philip J. Fry, who is a pizza delivery guy, gets a fake pizza order for a cryogenics lab, and he goes in and nobody's there, and he's mad, and it's New Year's Eve, and so he sits in a chair and he's like, here's to another lousy millennium, and goes with the noisemaker, knocks him into a cryogenic tube where he freezes for 1,000 years. So that's the first time. And he's not really traveling in time, he was just frozen in time, so it doesn't, but Futurama does actually do time travel a couple of times. Most notably, they go back to Roswell, New Mexico in 1951 because Fry put aluminum in the microwave on the ship while they were going by, I believe it was a black hole, and it sucked him into time.
It happens.
He ended up in Roswell, and somehow he ended up being his own grandfather. But I think that's another story.
Michael, how did Futurama work for you?
I found it very fascinating because at one point it was a binary code that was tattooed on the rear end of said Philip J. Fry that enabled Bender and others to leap through time. So very interesting science to that.
Let's next talk about what some of us might consider a classic, Time Tunnel. Kristi, lead us off on that one. The Irwin Allen classic itself.
Yes, and there's only 30 episodes, but they're all wonderful. Doug and Tony are to researchers with a secret government project called TikTok. And it's 800 floors below in a secret base in Arizona. And at the time, it was 7.5 million, which has cost approximately today about 70 million. Billion, I mean, not million, billions. And so it was a very expensive project. And the senator comes and says, we're shutting you down because you cost too much. And you are, in 10 years' time, you have not done anything. So Tony runs into the tunnel and ends up on the Titanic.
That sucks.
Yes, on the day it's going to sink. So Doug goes in to help Tony out. But in order to track them, they have to go through a radioactive mist to put the tracker on them. So in today's times, a lot of it is kind of very risky, and they don't really know where they are going to end up, although they're in historical moments. And they can't bring them back, but they can send them on to another destination.
River, what are your favorite time tunnel memories?
Well, mostly it's the footage that they got from old movies so that they would be in the right time. But it was charming because, again, much like Quantum Leap, they could not get home. They had to just keep changing time and time and time. And every time they did, there was something that they sort of had to fix. And that's my big problem with historical time travel shows, is that it's always, well, we need to fix the past, but we can't fix the past.
Well, let's look at how things were fixed in Warehouse 13. Over to you, Veronica.
So Warehouse 13 can probably best be described as X-Files meets Indiana Jones.
Wow, that sounds good.
Yeah, you have a couple of Secret Service agents who basically are put in charge of this large warehouse in the middle of South Dakota nowhere. And with their job is to collect magical artifacts that tend to pop up in the world. And while it's not necessarily a time travel show, the way that they handle time travel in a particular episode is fun and unique.
Michael, take it away.
It actually has a familiar feel to Quantum Leap, where they actually transfer their consciousness to the past to actually kind of, inhabit, exhibit into someone else and that appearance, and can, change events.
River, I've not actually watched Warehouse 13. Do you recommend I do so?
I would. It's a very, very well done show. When I first saw it, it reminded me a little bit of Friday the 13th, the series, where you had magic objects and poisoned objects that you had to collect. But this takes it a step further. They have more technology. They travel back and forth in time, and they have H.G. Wells.
Oh, much like Doctor
And
Who.
Veronica should tell you more about her.
Why don't you pick up that baton, Veronica? Anything to add?
I love H.G. Wells. She's one of my favorite characters ever. Oh, I gave it away. Whoops, sorry. So she actually has her time machine, but it's not the normal time machine that we think. As Michael touched on, it sends consciousness back. So it sends our two heroes back to 1961 into the bodies of two other agents from 1961. But the real fun here is when it's in one shot, it's not even mentioned, but in the background, you see a familiar piece of time travel memorabilia. And it's a little tiny thing that looks like a little Y and is called a flux capacitor.
I knew she was going to say that.
Nice.
You're watching the Not the Doctor panel with me and this panel of expert Whovians. Now, even though it's been a very difficult time for us all lately, one positive of lockdown has been the ability to go back and read some of our favorite shows. And I have had the pleasure of watching every episode of Lost, even the dodgy ones about time travel. And so I'm just curious to know what members of the panel thought of the way Lost handled time travel. Myriam, you're smiling. Why don't you start us off on this one?
I actually kind of love and hate the show. So it's kind of like on the top of my list of, I would probably watch it again. I don't understand how I'm still trying to figure out, I think I have to watch it again just to understand the island itself. That's the time travel machine.
I won't. I've watched it a second time and still don't get it, but I just go with it.
But it is, you know, these people are in a plane which crashes on an island, and the whole time they're trying to get back home, and eventually they run into a scientist that's been in a bunker who's been messing with them a bit, and they figure out that they have to keep punching these numbers in order to keep the island from exploding.
Nothing complicated about that, Myriam. Thank you so much for clearing it up. Julie, how do you think about the way that Lost dealt with the time travel aspect?
Wait, say that again?
I was just asking Julie what she thought, if she agreed with you.
I actually think it was a bunch of pretentious nonsense. I think Lost wrote themselves into a corner and had absolutely no way of getting out. And so they were just, the writer's room, they'd all get stoned and then they'd start writing crap. I mean, that's really
Yes. Well, there you go.
Probably the best description of it.
Yeah.
Lost to Dirk Gently. It is the holistic detective agency. Miriam, you like that one a bit more, yes?
Yes, I really like the show. I want to watch it again. I actually started watching it again. You know, Hannah Marks, who plays Dirk, is really quirky, and I love his character. And you know, Elijah Woods is plays Todd in the series, and he's very confused, and he comes around. He's like he kind of grows in the show, so I really like that about it. Like there's all this different growing and figuring out of yourselves and within the show, but it's a very convoluted. I'm not even going to try to explain the show because it's so complicated.
River, do you see elements of Doctor Who in Dirk Gently anywhere?
Well, since it is basically the brainchild of Douglas Adams, definitely. And I really like Dirk Gently, and the easiest way to explain it is everything's connected.
Let me just throw out a few more shows that have dealt with time travel. Michael, The Flash has gone there. How effectively did Flash deal with time travel?
He didn't quite understand how running that fast through would affect things when he saved his mother, changed the course of multiple events, and caused he caused his own negative version to even exist. So there were severe repercussions for it, and then also he's traveled to alternate world and time points of the same Earth, like a multiverse.
Veronica, tell us how Once Upon a Time dealt with time travel.
So Once Upon a Time deals with time travel through magic spells and wands. It's probably one of the most absurd ways to time travel, but given that the character that initiates the time travel spell is the Wicked Witch of the West, Zelena, that's kind of why I love it. Yeah, it scoops up characters that probably shouldn't be traveling through time. But it's, you know, fans of the show probably watched it and what are they doing? Why are they doing time travel in the world of fairy tales? But okay, hey, we'll go with it.
Let's bring it back to another British show, Blackadder, in which you don't necessarily think of time travel, but if you look at the special extra episode, the last one made, Blackadder Back and Forth, you know, that is a time travel adventure, isn't it, Julie? And how effective is it?
Well, Blackadder is he's trying to trick the royals into thinking that he's done something extraordinary. And so he builds a time machine and he says it's based on Da Vinci's design. And he has a bunch of things planted in there. So he goes in and he brings back artifacts, and they're fake, of course. Well, then he and Baldric go in there and suddenly, oops, it worked. And they find themselves being hurtled forward in time. And they end up at World War I, and then they end up further forward, and they finally end up way, way, way in the future. And I won't ruin it for you, but it ends very strangely, and also very sadly. Strangely enough, it ends very sadly.
Worth checking out, and as usual, Baldric's plan is, to quote Blackadder, as cunning as a fox with a degree from the University of Cunning. So we'll check out Blackadder back and forth and see how that works. Well, our panelists have been talking all about time travel. And so I would assume they've all thought about where they would travel back to in time and where they would travel to in the future and when. So I'm going to go to each of you and ask you first to tell me if you could travel back in time, where and when would you go? Julie, start us off.
I would travel all the way back in time. I want to see the Big Bang, just to see it, just to witness the birth of everything.
And by the way, she doesn't mean the filming of the pilot of The Big Bang Theory. She means the event that created the Earth. Is that correct, Julie?
Yes. I'd have to be in a bubble. I'd want to be in a bubble and watch what happened.
Yeah.
Just so we would have definitive.
Well back. Yes. Interesting answer, River.
Oh, well, that's really good. I don't think I want to go that far back. I think I would like to go to the Renaissance and meet Leonardo da Vinci.
Oh, yes. Good answer. Myriam.
You know, I've thought of this quite a bit, and I think I would like to go back to Egypt and meet Cleopatra.
Yes, me too. She was hot. Veronica.
I actually want to go back to 18th century France and study dressmaking under the dressmaker for Marie Antoinette.
Wow, you've really thought about that. Michael.
I actually, I don't know if it's one and the other, but I would rather travel to the future.
Well, we're doing that next.
Okay. Past, I would go back to the beginning of the first innovative technology of the first computer.
Huh.
Well,
is it just me who wants to go back and see the Beatles play at the Cavern Club? Apparently it is.
It might be that.
But we haven't heard Kristi's answer yet. Kristi, is there some reason to go back in time other than seeing the Fab Four?
Yeah, I would go to July 17th, 1955, the day Disneyland opened, and see if it really was such a disaster as everybody says it was.
Well, you can get in there a whole lot cheaper. That was for sure. Well, what great answers, all of you, which makes me intrigued as we sort of close out this panel by looking to the future, which is very much the theme of all this. So why don't we go in reverse order from before? Kristi, if you could time travel to the future, when would you go and what would you want to see?
I would take July 17th, 2055, the 100th year of Disneyland, and see how much has changed.
It's got a theme here. Yes. What lands would they have then?
Tomorrowland is really Tomorrowland?
They would probably have acquired every other entertainment property on the planet. So Doctor Who Land would probably be in a corner of Disneyland, which has now expanded to cover the whole of Anaheim. You know, it's the whole city at this point. Yeah, I think I'll join you if there's room for one more. I would love to go there. Michael, your trip to the future.
I would want to see somewhere between 2,500 or to 3,000 to see if we actually reach more interstellar travel.
Right, Veronica.
Mine's actually very meager. I want to go to December of 2021, and I want to see how the election goes. I want to see how we survive COVID, so that I can come back and tell my present me it's going to be okay, or it's not going to be okay. This is what you need to do.
Very practical, always good to have a survival plan, Veronica. Yes, you've really thought about this, I can see. Myriam.
I would like to go to the time when we have flying cars. Kind of like Back to the Future, you
We
know?
were supposed to have those by now. Whatever happened to the flying?
Yeah, we're a
We
bit
didn't
late,
get 'em.
you know, 2014.
Okay, now what year would you predict, Myriam, that we will have the flying cars?
I don't know, 3014 is my prediction.
3014?
Yes, I don't think there's a humanity is very idiotic. I don't know that we'll get there anytime this century.
Yeah. Wow, I think the descendants of Elon Musk will be working on that then, you know, sometime. River, intrigued to know what you say. What's your trip to the future?
I would like to go to the 51st century. I want to see what's going on in the universe and have probably the ability to travel around the universe and see if Earth is still here.
Yes, which is not guaranteed, judging by certain Doctor Who episodes. Julie, the last word for you. You know, if you could touch a stone and go into the future, where would you like it to take you?
I would like to go right here, but 1,000 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would want to be a bug on the wall in a history class, just to see what they said about us.
Well, I can tell you, Julie, because they will be screening this panel for generations to come. It will be educational. Think of this as a video time capsule. The Not the Doctor panel will, trust me, be studied by future generations, you know, about what our vision of the future was. And by then, maybe they'll have discovered time travel. It's been so nice joining all of you. So from me, Sandro, Monetti, and the rest of the Not the Doctor panel, I'm sure we all agree that what we really want to do in the future is fast forward to see the next series of Doctor Who and hope that it's absolutely brilliant. Some improvement needed there for sure. Goodbye from us. Back to the future!